Hello and welcome to the CSR Universe Leaders Talk segment. Today is a special day for us as we do not have a corporate leader or a professional development agency. We don't have a policymaker either. Instead, we'll be discussing the work and impact of a very special organization founded by one of the most revered social figures in India. I'm talking about the Art of Living Foundation. Now, the minute I say art of living, we think of spirituality, meditation, and personal well-being, but that's not all. There's so much more to it. This enormous organization, founded by Gurudev Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, is strengthening communities across India through extensive social projects. Their initiatives can match any corporate foundation or development agency in scope and scale. From education to environment, from water security to waste management. You name it, and they're most likely already working in it. To discuss the remarkable work being done by Art of Living, we have with us the Chairman of Art of Living Social Projects, Shri Prasana Prabhu. Prasanna ji, it's a pleasure to have you with us. I'm personally very excited about this discussion because there are very few organizations that are doing what Art of Living does. So we'll just go ahead with the question straight away.
Please.
So, yes, the trust that implements social projects for Art of Living is called Vyakti Vikas Kendra. That's the name. So how does this name reflect the guiding philosophy or binding purpose of the trust? And what differentiates it from a corporate foundation or an international development agency?
So the name itself, like you said, is Vyakti Vikas Kendra. So what we believe is that unless every individual is taken care of and nurtured, no project A can be successful. And even if it is successful, it'll never be sustained. So if you really genuinely want to create a sustainable model where we do work at the grassroots level and make sure that it continues for posterity, it is very, very important that the individuals are focused upon. And therefore, we say Vyakti Vikas Kendra. Every individual needs to be looked into. And please understand, we may have processes, we may have all of that, but ultimately, who is the one who's actually following those processes are people. And if a person is completely stressed and he's completely, not available for the work at hand, then the work suffers. So if you genuinely want to create impactful, sustainable work on ground, it becomes imperative that we work with people and work on people and make sure that these people who are working on ground, especially in the social sector, don't burn out. This is what is something that we have seen a lot. People who work in the social sector, they continuously work, and because they're driven by passion and wherever they keep working, and at some point they burn out and then they feel that, oh my God, I've done enough. So the ability to work with full intensity and full commitment on ground and every once in a while unwind and be ready for the next day with the same zeal and vigor, I think it becomes very, very imperative that we work with people and work on people, like I said.
Yes, and I think that is what differentiates you from a corporate foundation or a development agency, because you're doing the same work, but it's just the approach that you have.
Absolutely. And more importantly, we are driven not by the standard stuff that the corporates are driven by. We are driven more by compassion. We are driven more by the need that is available in the world today, not so much by profit and not so much by monetary gains. It's more by what the need is there in the world today.
Absolutely. Now, as I mentioned, and the trust is functional in multiple areas. And each one is fairly broad in terms of their scope and reach. So you being the person who's leading it, how do you prioritize your time and even the resources, the resource pool of the trust amongst these areas and projects? Are there any specific guidelines, or how do you do that?
So it goes back to what we spoke about. It's people, and it's bottom up is the way we work. So it's not we don't sit out here in the Bangalore International Center and say, this is what we'd like to achieve in this year, and now let's just go make it happen. In fact, what is happening is it is working bottom up. There are people who are working at the grassroots levels, and they come up with so many different projects, which then comes up and we say yes, and then it gets executed. So we have multiple people taking responsibility and creating groundswell there. And therefore it is not because it's not a top-down approach, it is mushrooming simultaneously across the country. So when we talk about water conservation, we are already working in about 8-9 states. We're working in very serious discussions with the government for about another 10 states. Then when you talk about skilling, we're working in pretty much 20 odd states. When you're talking about afforestation, in the last 3 months, we've planted more than 1 crore trees. So
Wow.
again, why? Because it is groundswell. It is not because somebody up here sits and says, or Gurudev says, go and plant 1 crore trees. No, it's not like that. He has just inspired people, and people, depending on the need in that specific area, because everybody comes from different areas. They don't all sit in Bombay or Bangalore and Delhi. They sit in different parts of the country, and the need varies. Somewhere there is a lot of water. Like Odisha, if you go, there is a lack of water is not the big issue. But if you go to Marathwada region of Maharashtra, lack of water is a big challenge. If you go to Kerala, again, water is not the issue, but the contamination of the water, groundwater is a big challenge. So there we do projects which are connected to pollution mitigation. But when we would work in Maharashtra, in Marathwada region especially, we work with the groundwater recharge. So wherever, depending A, on the need, B, there are a lot of government schemes that operate in the country. So, for example, if you are working in Maharashtra, there is Jal Yug Shivar. So, we work very, very closely with the government. We believe that the challenges that the country has today are so vast and so large that unless we work very closely with the government, it is very difficult or very practically impossible to find solutions.
Yes.
So when you talk about that, there are a lot of schemes that the government does. So there's Narega. Narega does not work in Maharashtra, Gujarat, for example, because at 300 or 350 rupees per day, no person is willing to come there. Their normal bhatta there if they work in the villages, they get more than 500, 600 bucks.
Right.
But in other parts of the country, like Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, we found fantastic success with Narega. And we've created a model where the corporate comes in and chips in for the gap funding, and 85 to 90% of the money comes from Narega. And this is a beautiful merger that we've sort of created, and we being the catalyst in all of this. So we bring in a corporate, it puts about 10-15%. The Narega fills in about 80-85%, and together 100% work gets generated, and everybody is happy. Government achieves its targets. The corporates are very excited that with their 10-15%, they're able to now talk about 100%. The government is very, very excited. We are very excited because now we are able to do vast projects which otherwise would have been very small and limited to some areas. So it's a matter of bringing everybody together, and I believe that collaboration is the name of the game. Individually, we can only do that much, but when we collaborate, we can do that much more.
I was actually coming to that, the collaborations and partnerships, because I was reading about the Jaltara project and the kind of work that is being done, the rivers and all. It's amazing. So what kind of technical partnerships have you forged? Because this requires a lot of technical expertise.
Absolutely correct. And without that, in fact, our core is people, which is the groundswell. That is the enthusiasm that they bring to the table and are willing to do whatever. Now that you have a set of people that are willing to do something, they should be guided technically. It should not be something that they just do because they are inspired. You know, they should end up messing up or with ecology. They should do it in line with what the technical. So we have a very, very strong technical team. We partner with various different organizations, the government as well. But we ourselves have more than 50 odd people who are experts in geology, geomorphology, then GIS, remote sensing, all of these scientists and technical people we have on board. So before we embark on any project, we have a very, very strong action plan that gets created. So before the people are put into work, there is a technical action plan that gets created, and everybody follows that action plan and goes out there and executes it. So that becomes the second level of our work. One is the enthusiasm of people because they are so driven. So that's one which is the most important according to me, because then they will not be pilferage. There will not be, money is not going to be siphoned off. All the money that whoever is deputing, whether it's a CSR or a government, 100% of that money, I'm saying this with a lot of responsibility, 100% of that money gets deployed on ground, which is a big need today. A lot of monies are, there is pilferage, everybody knows it. And beyond a point, most people don't know how to address it. I think it is compassionate, passionate, and enthusiastic, and people who are doing it for a cause rather than for money. So that becomes our core. Second, on top of that is layer is that it's technically sound and there is technical understanding on whether when we get into any project, we're not just going out there and digging. We are not just going out there and making a structure. We are not a contractor kind of organization. We are more compassion, technical, and then of course there is a contractor angle, because ultimately structures need to be created in the riverine ecosystem so that the water can be flowing, water can be stopped, the stopped water can be put back into the ground.
Yes.
So yeah, groundwater is recharged. So therefore, this is how we found that everything is working efficiently, and more than efficiency, it is happening with a lot of enthusiasm. So it's like a celebration everywhere when one works.
That sounds lovely. There was one more thing I wanted to ask, like in water, I wanted to know about sustainable, you're working in sustainable agriculture. So I think that's a very important aspect, and strengthening agriculture is like strengthening, India's skeletal system in a way.
Absolutely correct.
So what are you doing? How's the work
So
progressing
there
there?
it's very interesting. So now from water, we talk about water. When we talk about water, we're not talking about only the urban area, we're talking about rural areas. And
Rural
if
areas,
you
yes.
see, 75% of our country today is still agrarian, whether you like it or not, people accept it or not. It's the truth. If you go little away from the B and C tier cities, you will find everybody is into agriculture.
Yes.
And the fact is that more than 260 odd districts in the country are water starved. So therefore, they cannot do agriculture there because there is no rain, or even if there is rain, there is no groundwater. So the whole ecosystem has gone for a toss. So what we believe, to supplement or complement that, we should work and get into natural farming. Because the amount of chemicals that we're putting in our ground today is quite scary. And each of the time that we put the chemicals, the land is becoming barren, hard, water is not seeping in, the entire the ecosystem of that soil is dying. So for example, most people in the past would know that earthworm is a very, very hard working partner of the farmer.
Yes,
and now you keep on putting chemicals, all the earthworms are dead. The entire, what do you say, the soil which lived is now dying. The earthwork goes up and down so many times in a day that you don't need to do too much tilling.
Yeah.
So because of that, and also their excrete is becoming a manure for that soil. But now because that we have put so much chemicals, all of that entire ecosystem is dead. So now what are we doing? We're bringing people away from chemicals and all that, and we're bringing them towards natural farming. So it's basically gobar, gomutra, and doing some simple concoctions which everybody in the respective villages can do. There is a big myth that if you do natural farming, the output will drop drastically. It is not necessarily true. Also, there is a myth that it takes 3 years for the ground, which whatever the chemical fed ground today for it to convert to natural. Organic maybe, but when it comes to natural, no, we can reverse it in 6 months. So these are all myths that need to be burst, and this is what we are working very, very hard. We've trained more than 22 lakh farmers over the last about 10, 12 years. And it is an ongoing process, because training is one aspect that, yeah, now you are trained and you know what to do, but do you still do it? And if you don't do it, why are you not doing it? You're not doing it because there is no market linkages. When you're producing, your costs are coming down, but is your output coming down? There is this skepticism, there is this doubt, they don't know. So in the midst of all of this, at the end of the day, we can talk about, on a Zoom call and wherever else and talk about agriculture and sound pretty cool. But for them, it's their livelihood. So they can't mess with it. Today, if I'm getting 100 quintals of whatever, tomorrow I don't want it to become 50 quintals or 670 quintals. So there is a lot of doubt. So there is a lot of interaction that needs to happen. There is a lot of sensitizing that needs to happen. We have to show them role models. We have to show them what has happened elsewhere. So they, over a period of time, they sort of say, okay, and then they move in. So this is a big, and also, by the way, please understand that the farmers know it. They've been there, done that. They've been saying, yes. You go and tell them, do this. They say, mera baap ka baap, mera baap ka baap. They used to do this. Who are you to come and teach me? So these are things that take a little bit of time, but we have now created a robust system where we are able to prove to the farmer that this will help him or her. And therefore, more and more people are slowly moving from chemical farming and moving towards natural-based farming.
Okay, the numbers you are saying, you've trained 22 lakh farmers and, 1 crore trees planted. I mean, these are astonishing. They are large, and I apologize.
Again, I'm repeating, it is because of the groundswell. It is not because there is a target that is set on top, because people are inspired. They say, मेरे area में मुझे क्या चाहिए, हम उसको मिलके कर लेंगे. So all then what happens, even a lot of funds get raised because this,
Absolutely. Yes, because of
and
that.
of course there is a lot of fund that goes from the center. So that's the coordinated effort that we have to bring in. But the enthusiasm and the want to do is coming from the ground. So which is why it becomes relatively easier. I'm not saying it's easy, it's very difficult still because it is a volunteer-based organization.
Yes,
In
yes.
other organizations, there is a structure.
Hmm.
I report to you and you report to someone. But our volunteer organization, nobody reports to anybody. I'm doing it because I care. I'm doing it because I love my mother nature and I'm going to da, da, da. So in that, how do we still bring some discipline? At the end of the day, if you have to execute something on ground, discipline is important. So how do you do that? That is it has its own challenges, but it's
Yes.
a good challenge to have rather than
Yes,
other challenges that we otherwise face.
absolutely. Now, you're functional, I mean, you're working in so many other areas. I wish I had the time to discuss everyone separately, but I'd just like to close with a rather broad question. Now, traditional social areas, if I may say, like education and skilling, women empowerment, rural development. Now, these are areas which require long-term sustained efforts, and Art of Living has been functional in all these domains. So, how has your approach evolved in these so-called traditional areas? And what kind of shifts are you noticing in the communities that you serve? Because you've been doing this for a long time. So,
So just for your viewers' understanding, we run about 1,200 free schools. Okay, we run
yes.
about 100 paid schools, which is
Hmm.
actually subsidizing for the 1,200 free schools,
Preschool. Yes.
right? And there are about 100,000 children, 50% of them are girls. And this is running in the remotest parts of the country where otherwise
Yes.
education probably would have not reached or would
Hmm.
have taken a lot more time for it to reach. There are schools that have been running for the last 25 years. There are kids who studied in our school who now teachers in our schools. So it's a full cycle. So this is
Hmm.
on education. Now the main thing is initially with education, the parents themselves would not send their children to school. They say, "Tu kya पढ़
I
के क्या
know.
करेगा?" I mean, especially the girls, "तुम क्या कर लोगे पढ़ के बड़े?"
Hmm.
So now the whole challenge initially was, to convince the parents to send them to school, and now it's completely different. The parents are nudging and ushering children to school, which is a big, big, big shift, if I may say so.
Wow.
So
Yes.
that itself is a paradigm shift, no? Where you say,
Yes. Yes.
"क्या करेगा मेरा
Absolutely.
बच्चा पढ़ के?" To come on, you must go to school. That itself, I think, is a huge shift, which is something that we've seen.
Hmm.
The health of the children have gone up because they're getting nutritious food every day when they're in our schools, in the free schools. And there is a sense of confidence. There's a sense of, I can do. Where some of them have become, like, for example, in Karnataka, the first metro driver, I don't know what they call, loco pilots, was a
Hmm.
girl who graduated uh,
Oh,
from our free school that we run here in Bangalore.
lovely.
And there was one who joined the army. So many like that, so many cases. There are so many have become teachers. So there is a beautiful uh, uh, alumni that is getting created. Everybody is looking up to them.
Right.
The whole ecosystem is now buzzing. And but having said that, it was not easy. It took a lot of effort and consistent being at it for a period of time. And today we are able to see the results. Now, another area of our activity is skilling. We run more than 126 skill
Yes.
centers in the border areas, which is something that people are otherwise not thought of. I think this government in the recent past said that they are not the last villages. In fact, they are the first villages. So we need to give
Hmm.
it everything that we have so that everybody who comes in from outside comes into these villages, they see what India is and everything.
Hmm.
So that we have now solar electrified more than 30 schools. There are digital classrooms. These are all border, huh?
Yes.
Where otherwise people
So,
would have taken forever to reach.
yes, absolutely.
Then we have more than 26 skill centers that we're running in prisons. Now, anyway, they're captive, they're available, they can't go anywhere, but you might as well use that time to make them productive. So when they come out, they don't go back into some petty crime or a bigger crime. They go
Hmm.
back
Hmm.
to, merging with the existing our ecosystem and become a responsible citizen. So skilling we are doing there. We are skilling. We have refurbished more than 35 ITI. So there is government infrastructure, but doesn't have enough. So we use that
Hmm.
infrastructure instead of creating more infrastructure.
Right.
We are also working with a lot of governments now where we've taken up some government schools. So there are so many activities that are happening, and the change that I've seen over the last maybe over a decade or so is that whether it's the people on ground, whether it's the government, whether it's the corporates, everybody is so gung-ho and excited about going out there and contributing, whether it's in the space of water, whether it's in the space of farming, natural farming, or education, or any other sector for that matter. But people are willing and wanting, and I've seen a sea change in the approach from the government, which is, according to me, is a big one.
Yes.
So where otherwise they would say, ha, hu, ha, hu. Now they say, you tell me what is it that you need, but this is what we want to do. Tell us how you can become part of that in making sure that that dream can be achieved. So yeah, it's encouraging for people who are working on at the grassroots level, when the corporates and the government and the entire ecosystem is supportive to make sure that whatever needs to happen happens.
Wonderful. Just in the end, is there any message that you'd like to give to people who are working in the social sector, be it the NGOs, corporates, or even development professionals?
Power to them, what they're doing, what we are doing, I wouldn't say they, what we are doing is incredible. And everybody must continue, and very, very importantly, continue to keep your energy high, your be inspired, for which it is very important that you calm yourself every once in a while. Just by being outwardly focused, it is not going to, only that will not help. You need to also move inwards. So therefore, meditation and the core of what we teach becomes very, very important. And I think every social organization must learn meditation. The people in the organization, I mean, because unless you are nurtured and full inside, there is very little that you can give. There are times that when you begin, you're very, very enthusiastic and gung-ho, and over the next 3, 6, 7, 8 months, you find that it becomes very dry, it becomes very drab, it becomes, oh my God, one more thing to do. So to bring the juice back, it is very important that you nurture yourself well. So that's one. Second is to people. It's very, very important now that you start giving. The whole joy or the whole empowerment that you get when you give. We have all our lives focused on taking and hoarding. Now it is important that we start giving, and nobody is expecting you to give everything that you have, but some portion of what you have, you must give, because there are lots and lots of people who are deprived. You and me are very, very privileged. We may still crib about what we don't have, but we are very, very, very privileged. And this privilege is something that we must share with others, so that more and more people can be privileged, and this entire nation, which is such a beautiful nation, can, over the next maybe a decade, go back to where its earlier glory. Let's see if we can become part of that.
Hope so, certainly. Thank you, Prasanna ji. Thank you for your time, and it's been an absolute privilege talking to you.
Thank you.